Who here knows about NCSL? Are you guys familiar with our organization? Not everybody. Let me give you a little 101. Oops, am I going the wrong way? On what NCSL is, so you will know where I'm coming from up here. I've got a few little NCSL facts up there. We essentially have three main parts to our mission. First of all, we are a think tank of sorts. Because we are a bipartisan organization, we don't take any positions on state issues or anything of that nature, but we do a lot of nonpartisan research on just about any issue you can think of that might come up in a state legislature, including elections. We do not draft model legislation or anything like that, like some of our sister organizations do. But we try to serve as an information clearinghouse for that sort of thing and send it out upon request. Second of all, we are a professional organization for legislators and legislative staff, so we do a lot of training, both on being a legislator and a legislative staffer, and on the issues that legislatures face. We put out a lot of publications, and we have a very robust website with a lot of information on state issues. And then third, we are a lobbying organization. We do not lobby the states. We lobby at the federal level and only on a very small handful of select issues. It takes a supermajority vote of our membership for us to take a policy position, so it does not happen very often. Virtually any policy position you can think of is guaranteed to make at least half of our members angry. So it takes something pretty unique to get us to that level. We have not lobbied on the MOVE Act to date, taken any position on it or anything like that. So what do we do with the MOVE Act? Well, we have this fabulous resource at NCSL, and I will tell you all at the end of my talk here how to get to it. It's a database of state legislation relating to elections, and it goes back to 2001. I remember back after the Florida election in 2000, I started seeing all these press clips coming across my desk saying Senator so-and-so is going to introduce a bill to ban hanging chads, and Representative so-and-so is going to, prohibit the butterfly ballot. And so I started sticking all these articles into a folder thinking, I got to pay attention to this. And next thing I knew, the folder is this thick. It's falling apart at the seams. So I dropped it into a spreadsheet, thought, I'll be a little more organized about this. And next thing I knew, the spreadsheet's 100 pages long. So that's how this database was born, and I have not been able to shake it since. So we track legislation on really all aspects of election administration, and in our database we have a preset category for MOVE bills. So to the extent that we can use our imperfect system of identifying all of these bills, once they get into the system they're really easy to track and it's accessible to you. So according to NCSL's fancy schmancy database, 33 states so far have passed legislation dealing with the MOVE Act. These are not all comprehensive MOVE Act implementation bills, but they deal with significant portions, at least, of the MOVE Act. The 24 states you see in blue here acted on it in some cases in late 2009, most of them in 2010. And then the 9 states that you see in purple acted on it in 2010 and then have legislation again this year to make changes to what they've already done. And actually Utah should be purple on this map as well. Just comparing notes at the table here, I found that I was missing one of the UMUVA bills. Utah has one. Connecticut, Hawaii, Maine, Oklahoma, and South Dakota also have UMUVA bills introduced or pre-filed so far this year. So what about the 17 states that have not enacted significant MOVE implementation legislation so far? The 7 states that you see in red up here didn't enact anything in 2007, but do have something pending this year. And I learned this morning that I'm missing a couple of bills in Texas, so Texas really should be colored in red here. And then the 10 gray states didn't do anything in 2010 that was significant, and to date don't have any significant legislation pending this year. So why not? 17 states haven't actually passed anything yet. 7 have at least something pending this year. Partially, it's a a flaw in the way NCSL approaches this. Not all states are going to have to enact major MOVE implementation legislation, and we're tracking this from the point of view of state legislation. So, for instance, Maryland shows on our state as gray, when in fact Maryland didn't really need to pass significant MOVE implementation legislation. So that's part of the issue here. In some states, they are so wrapped up in budget deficits and the difficulty of passing a budget that they have not paid attention to many issues in a way that they did in past years, and that includes MOVE implementation in these states. I don't think that politics are a factor here. I don't think that any legislator would say that they don't want to maximize the voting rights of military and overseas citizens. I think in some states we're lacking a policy champion. We're lacking somebody on the key elections committee who knows in detail both about what the MOVE Act requires and what that entails in state law. So there is perhaps a bit of a lobbying gap here. Somebody needs to be identified to step forward and take charge of this issue and push legislation through. But in some states, it's nothing but a timing problem. I have another slide I can show you here on these last two bullets. So there were 4 states that didn't even have a legislative session in 2010, and they were already adjourned in 2009 when the MOVE Act was enacted. Most states, in fact, were adjourned in 2009. Just about half a dozen states stay in session throughout the year. The majority of states are finished with their legislative session by summer. So it was a really small number of states that were able to act quickly in 2009, and then these 4 states were not able to come back and act in 2010 because they didn't have a regular session. 2 of them already have legislation pending this year, and there is still plenty of time in the other 2 states for legislation to be introduced. Then there are also, among these 17 states, some of them have a very limited even year session. So it's limited in terms of the number of days in session in some states, and given the budget situation, I can guarantee you that that soaked up 99.999% of the energy in the legislature in that very short session. And then Arkansas, this is actually 2010 is the first time Arkansas has ever met in an even year, and it's meant to be a budget session, and I was in the Capitol during this session, and they were very, very careful to keep to that rule. They were not allowing any special introductions of bills in Arkansas that were not directly budget related. So there's just no way this could have come up in many of these states until this year. And frankly, I'll be surprised if it doesn't come up in every one of these states this year in one way or another. And then the other factor, I'm a really big data geek, having managed this database for 10 years now. I just love this stuff. And I started noticing this pattern a few years into the database. But this shows you the number of bills introduced but not passed in red. And then the top little bit there is the bills that were actually enacted relating to elections only. So you'll see there's a big dip in even years. And I think that it's largely a timing issue. I think that legislatures are unwilling to tinker with election administration in a major way when you're just a couple of months away from a general election. So I think that accounts for why some of these states have not acted yet. So let me leave you with a few resources here that I mentioned at the beginning. And our website, I think, is a little bit hard to navigate. Don't tell our IT department I said that. So I'm going to give you the easy way to do it. You see the white box up in the upper right-hand corner there? I'm going to give you a couple of codes that you type in. So if you type GO 22007 in, that'll take you to this legislation database that I've been talking about. It is fully publicly accessible and really easy to search. And you are welcome to have at it. Another one is our Canvas newsletter. It comes out about once a month, and it's directed at legislators and staff primarily, but it's really of interest to anybody in the elections community. And you can view back issues there, and we have a topical index, too, that makes it really easy to navigate, and you're welcome to subscribe if you'd like. It goes out by email about once a month, not a secure encrypted email or anything like that, just a regular old email. And then the legislative action bulletins are sort of a sub-publication of the Canvas. They come out pretty frequently during legislative sessions, once or twice a month, and then become less frequent as the session goes on. And they really just update you on exactly what I've been talking about, what's going on in legislatures in relation to election administration. And we tend to pull out the MOVE Act and cover that in a separate article on each one of these, as well as other key issues. And of course, you're always welcome to contact me too.